So Tenyne is actually a workforce development company in Lagos, Nigeria. We're a technology company solving workforce problems in Africa because we understand, that's one of the major issues that we face in Africa. For instance, about 85% of Africa's workforce work informally. And we dedicated ourselves over the past 2 years to actually design solutions that could actually solve this kind of problems. And that's what we've been looking at. And over time, we've come in partnership with this great firm like Winniio, with Alminica, and we are gathering, a very fantastic team. And also, in regards to what we do and why we think this, webinar is really important, is because we understand, the workspace is actually evolving and it is also changing, and that has been occasioned by technology innovation. And at the same time, we are also facing new challenges that are making it necessary that people need to adapt the way they work, to actually fit to what is actually needed in this time and space. So we brought together this webinar to begin to look at initiatives, within emerging technologies, within the metaverse space, and also in digitalization, initiatives that we feel that could actually, drive solutions to some of these challenges. And one of the things we understand as well is that in solving some of these challenges, which could be things like climate change, it's not something that any individual can do alone. It requires community effort to drive it. And that is why you are here also in this webinar, because we are looking to have you as a partner to work with you together in actually delivering this kind of solutions. Okay, so once again, you're very much welcome to the webinar. So what I'll be doing next is to introduce our first presenter, who is Mikael. I'm going to read his profile, and then Mikael, please, you can go ahead and share a screen and continue the presentation. Thank you very much. Let me introduce Mikael. Okay. So Mikael has been active in research regarding growth of advanced materials since 1995, such as graphene on silicon carbide, and novel approaches on silicon carbide for new energy applications. Since 2005, Dr. Mikael is active in entrepreneurial discovery process by creating startups and technology transfer from research and innovation. He has experience from broader context from research to market, such as avenues in European research and innovation strategy for smart specialization for regional economic growth and strategic national innovation programs. He is active in global partnership for promoting impact from research, educating the next generation research leaders, and establishing value chains as tools to contribute to sustainable development goals, using energy and environmental technology from advanced material. Mr. Mikael, you're very much welcome. We are glad to have you. Please, sir, you can proceed with your first presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, I'm happy to meet everyone here. And like Chimdinma mentioned, now we have global issues and we should save the world and all these things. And this is done by people, when people are doing things together, getting engaged and active. So the purpose of this webinar is more sharing some of the things we are thinking about. And it will be a more overview in short way. And then in the second part, after we have made our presentations, which are like 10 minutes each, there will be question and answer part. So this is very informal. So, and the idea is that we will be inspired, but also if someone has an idea of how to save the world, we can work together on these things. And like Patrick, Nicolas, and Chimdinma and the team, they are very much into the digital future, Metaverse and digital twin and things which are very much in many years. Activities now, but they are coming more. And my activity is more in emerging technologies which is happening today. So there are some things which are happening, which will fit into the future of the metaverse and digital twin and so on. So that aspect we now just want to raise awareness about. So feel free, and if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat during the presentations, so we'll remember them. Then we'll take them up after. And then after our presentations, feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions and be active. So now I will share a couple of slides. Do you see my screen with PowerPoint? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
On the top is my name, Mikael, and I am from Sweden. And my background is basically a materials researcher, and we made some fantastic research avenues, and I have been involved in startups, technology transfer, and other things related to emerging technologies from materials. And what I will talk about is just an example of what is happening today about emerging technologies. So let us go back in time to this little blob. If anyone can recognize this blob, I will be impressed. But this is actually the first structure of the blue LED. So making material which has light emission. And this was researched in the 70s, 80s, and the blue LED was commercialized in 1993. Half of the participants here were not even born at that time. So it's many years back in time. And what the researchers did for the emerging technologies was to study the material because they were so fascinated about it, and then made a homemade system to make good enough quality of the material. And then they made another system just in order to handle the electric charges, plus and minus, so there could be light emission coming from the material. So they were very much into the research, and there was no emerging technology at all. And as you know, the blue LED combined with the white phosphor, the blue LED resulted in the Nobel Prize in Physics year 2014. And from the 80s until 2014, that's many, many years. And then this resulted in the white LED, which is now saving so much energy, which we know, you have it in the ceilings, all these LEDs. But it is also active in the society in arts, for example, in paintings. When you have light with different wavelengths and angles, you can experience the art in different ways due to this fantastic technology. And also it's a part of the design of buildings and smart cities and so on, just to experience this, because LEDs are so energy efficient, you can put them everywhere. So here an example from Brussels where light is changing every 3 seconds or so. And what happened is that in Japan and worldwide, they were so happy about this technology. Oh, saving a lot of energy, key enabling technology for the society. Investors said that we want more. But we don't want to wait 30 years for these things. We want it in less than 10 years. So we can create the new technologies for the future. And then Professor Amano, who's in this picture, one of the Nobel Prize winners, he said that, oh, no, this is not possible, not 30 years, not 10 years, we have to make many years. But what is happening is now that the new technologies, they are being put into programs, so they will come into use faster than before. So the new ideas will come into use in 10 years, maybe 15 years. And then we, this is me, are involved in some silicon carbide research avenues and started collaborations. And my original research was not useful at all for its intended purpose in 1999. But then some years later, 15 years later, came this guy, Satoshi Kamiyama, who had an idea about using my type of material for a new type of white LED. And he comes from the same group which got the Nobel Prize in Physics at Meiji University in Japan. So then we came into exciting avenues from the materials research towards emerging technologies. And this is still research, but at the bottom you can see that there is light coming out of the silicon carbide material, which we have made. So potentially it could be involved in some emerging technologies for the future. And then we started this collaboration with Nobel Prize winners, which was not a plan at all. but it just happened because we were doing the things we were interested in. So here you have Hayano, Margareta Linnarsson, Peter Wellman, and on the right side, I am there. So a team of researchers started to work together 12 years ago in this topic. And what we are doing now, because we are nice persons, we have complementary expertise areas, we come up with new ideas. So for example, you don't need to be having a great plan from the beginning. One of the partners I found just by Google. So I can describe those things more in detail in another seminar. But what I want to say is that we don't need to make super great plans with all details because it's not possible. But if we get started to collaborate, we do something with someone, a team, we can make fantastic things over the years. And for example, Hayano, she's expert in the optical properties of materials. So then we came into next collaboration with funding and other ones. And then she got another project based on the collaboration, and we continued the consortium. And now the ideas which we have is, for example, this. This is a frequency comb. This means that you have a laser with a wavelength. A material can split the wavelength to several, which means that you can transmit much more data. So instead of having 64 lasers, you can make this in fewer. So for example, instead of having 1,000 gigabit per second of data traffic, with these things, you can go to 1,000 terabit per second. And this is an ongoing project. So it means that there are emerging technologies being developed today for the future. But of course, all this amount of data and information, this cannot be used now because the technology is not there. But there are so many plans about how we can put the things together in a digital world, a digital twin and the future and all those things which are coming in the next two speakers. So this means that they are matching. So once we can understand these things more together and discuss and come to project, there will be more of these things realized from our activities. So this was my sharing of inspirational view that there are some things which we are doing today. Some of them will fail, other ones will work out. Some of the things we fail with is learning for next. And when we think about how to put these things in bigger picture, then we come into motivations like planetary purpose and digital twin and metaverse and so on, which Patrick and Nicolas will now give examples of. So with that, I hope you have got the picture that there are nice, interesting stuff ongoing, and we are a part of that and all work together. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mikael. We really appreciate you. Thank you. The talk focuses on how we can actually transit from research to business and making usefulness out of research as well. Thank you so much, sir. Moving quickly, please, for your questions, you can drop them in the chat, okay? And also when it is time, we'll also be allowing you to ask questions. Immediately after the presentation, we'll be having a question and a panel discussion, okay? So we'll be welcoming our next speaker, Patrick. And let me just read out Patrick's profile a bit, and then he can continue. Okay, so as author and speaker, Patrick discusses the technical and organizational issues within patch product life cycles and advanced manufacturing. He brings decades of industry experience leading IT deployment teams, teaching graduate level engineers, and as an advocate for developing the advanced manufacturing workforce. He teaches graduate courses in engineering management at Oakland University and was recently the workforce development lead for Siemens PLM. He collaborates with industry, academia, and workforce organizations to develop talent management strategies and advises to education and workforce committees. He has decades of industry experience in designing, developing, and leading teams in product lifecycle management, digital manufacturing, process planning, robotics and machine vision application in aerospace, shipbuilding, automotive, construction, packaging, and other industries. That's a very amazing profile. Patrick, thank you so much. You're welcome. Please, you can continue with your presentation.
Terrific. Thank you, Chimdi. Can you guys give me a thumbs up? Can you guys hear me and see my slides? Okay, great.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you very much. So actually, Mikael, you said something that that struck me when you said you did your PhD research and it didn't have any value at that moment, and then later on you did my own dissertation in 2004 predicted a digital twin, not to the fullest extent. I was really just looking at machine reliability data, but honestly, it was 10 or 12 years before I could even have a conversation with somebody who understood what the concept was. So it's like you do all this work on your dissertation, and then it's years until it has seemingly any value, but that's all good stuff. So, okay, so my topic is digitalization for a planetary purpose. That's a very big topic, so I hope I can live up to it. So, the steam engine, Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations, and the Declaration of Independence each appeared in 1776, meaning that in the history of democratic capitalism, it cannot be separated from greenhouse gas emissions. Yet, according to the UN, where am I? Here we go. There we go. Yet, according to the UN, these emissions must permanently decline by over 7% per year for the remainder of the decade for global temperatures to remain within 1.5 degrees of pre-industrial times and continue to decline to zero by 2050. But in the past half century, CO2 emissions have never declined by this amount, and the only decline close was a 5% annual drop due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Sustainability and economic success, at least in terms of how we currently measure economic success, are antithetical, and they move in opposite directions. So my name is Pat Hillberg, and as Chimdi said, I'm an adjunct professor at Oakland University near Detroit, Michigan, and you can see a picture of the university and about where we are. I semi-retired into this faculty position 3 years ago. Previously, I created the role of academic and workforce lead at Siemens PLM, and during that time, I developed a passion for workforce development, which I see as a necessary enabler for a sustainable future. And as luck would have it, the garbage trucks are coming by this morning. So if you have trouble hearing me, please let me know. So in the next few minutes, I will discuss the large scale and systemic effects which have led to our sustainability issues and how digital twins and the metaverse might help. We are now just beginning the fourth industrial age. In the first, coal was converted into steam, which could then drive factories. We no longer needed the muscle of humans or animals. We could use coal instead. In the second revolution, Henry Ford introduced mass production, manufactured millions of automobiles, and transportation shifted from horses to petroleum. Also important, Alfred Sloan of General Motors introduced a simple set of economic metrics used to manage his sprawling enterprise. The most important of these metrics being the single bottom line of profits, and this is causing us problems today. In the third revolution, we see computers, robots, electronics, and the internet, and routine human tasks were now performed by integrated circuits. Now we are reaching a fourth industrial age, which goes well beyond adding new technology into the factory. It is the fusion of the physical, digital, and biological. So if the third revolution is about robots and vision systems, the fourth revolution is about smartphones and even more smart watches. So, the smart watch that can monitor your pulse and how well you sleep in the evening and then digitize that information. At some point in the Middle Ages, farming communities organized so that one family devoted their attention to plowing everyone's fields, and all the other families shared their bounty with the family of the oxen team. This led to greater food security, and the community grew. By the 20th century and the Second Revolution, oxen were replaced by tractors such as those seen here. More food could be harvested by fewer people and transported further distances. The agricultural economy shifted to an industrial economy. But the reinforcing growth of the past century is reaching its limits, meaning that human growth is balanced by nature. The space available for automobiles has become limited, and carbon emissions warm the climate. The global supply chain has grown such that human populations are growing into viral reservoirs, which are flown easily around the world, causing pandemics. And as the Earth warms, more bacteria and viruses will enter the Earth's atmosphere, increasing the prevalence of disease. Humanity's growth is now limited by its own success. The human population and atmospheric CO2 are increasing geometrically, the latter leading to fires, floods, droughts, pandemic disease, and mass extinctions. And the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change estimates that 3 to 4 billion humans are highly vulnerable over the next few decades. So in my class, I teach one unit on capitalism and that it has 3 tenets: private property, markets, and firms. And each of these operate to maximize bottom line profits, which was the Alfred Sloan thing that I brought up earlier. However, externalities are the external effects placed on parties which are not included in that market contract between the seller of the automobile and the buyer of the automobile. There's an external effect of everybody who breathes the air as the automobile emits emissions, and we simply don't account for those costs. In 250 years of capitalism, we have never accounted for the external costs placed on people on the planet. For a quarter millennia, we have been charging these costs to a planetary credit card and only making the minimum payment. This debt is now coming due. So here's my premise. The second industrial revolution of mass production and single bottom line economic metrics ended in December 2019 with the coronavirus pandemic. And I'll tell you, 11 days after the disease was first recognized, I had it. So it was recognized in China, and 11 days later, I picked it up in Florida in the US. We are 3 years into the decade, which will define the remainder of the century. We need a new industrial revolution, which is not just high-tech factories, but also creates new economic models we have never seen before to account for external costs and to adopt triple bottom lines. Prosperity can no longer come at the expense of people on the planet. So this must be the new model of global trade in the fourth revolution. The video showing in the lower left shows how this might happen. It is known as a digital factory twin, in which a virtual model exactly replicates the physical. Instead of manufacturing products in one region and shipping those physical products around the world, we can use digital twins in the metaverse to transmit the data on how to manufacture those products to smart factories, which are local to where the products are consumed. Imagine if 99% of what you purchase were grown or manufactured within 1,000 kilometers of where you live. In certain factories, this is available today. The future is here, but it's unevenly distributed. We need to replicate smart factories in Detroit and Stockholm and Lagos. We will no longer ship physical products. We need to trade in the information required to manufacture those products locally. But the limitation to that future is the digital manufacturing workforce. We need global skills for local manufacturing. There can no longer be regional specialization in physical products, and local workforces must be capable of manufacturing a wide variety of things. And I apologize particularly for this audience. This is all US data. Living in the US, I just have easier access to US data. And I think this is very different from country to country, but the US definitely has some challenges. From this study by Deloitte and the Manufacturing Institute, in 2020, there were 12 million manufacturing positions in the United States. By 2030, about 2.5 million positions will open as workers retire, with an additional 1.9 million needed due to expected growth. So the total number of positions should increase to about 15 million, but less than 10 million of those workers were active in 2020, meaning that the 2030 skills gap may create over 2 million unfillable positions in the US, and 75% of what the workforce knew in 2020 will be obsolete by the end of the decade. And what that gets to is that the half-life of technical skills is about 5 years, meaning 50% of your technical skills 5 years from now will be obsolete, meaning 75% of what you know now will be obsolete in 10 years. The US has an overwhelming need to educate and train the manufacturing workforce. Further, to increase resilience in the global value chain, we must localize physical supply chains, which creates an even more urgent need. And this gets back to a more global vision. Each nation's workforce must increase their own ability to physically produce what they consume. So here are my takeaways. we can no longer ignore externalities. We have to balance people and planet along with prosperity. The disruption that we will see in this decade has not been seen in probably a century, possibly has never been seen. And this is going to be a very impactful and disruptive decade. We must develop a digital global workforce in order to support local and sustainable production. And I think this leads into Nicolas and the remainder of the program, that digital twins and the metaverse can be critical for developing these new workforces. So thank you very much. And if you can't get enough of me, so you feel free to check out my blog at patrickhillberg.com. Chimdi, back to you.
Thank you so much, Patrick. That was fantastic. Thank you. Really appreciate that. Yeah, so quickly we'll get to our next presenter, Nicolas. So let me introduce Nicolas to us. So Nicolas Waern is the founder of Winniio AB, which is a consulting firm specializing in top-tier consultancy in areas regarding digitalization, coupled with strategic management challenges. They are specialists in anything that has to do with built assets, construction, and the whole real estate lifecycle. They are experts in how companies can use context-agnostic digital twins, how modern tools can be leveraged, which includes 5G, AI, VR and AR, blockchain, smart building, smart city strategies, building automation and digital IT, IoT, OT transformations, industrial IoT and Industry 4.0 applications, streaming platform consultancy, digital first real estate, IoT platform strategies, and all of that. When it comes to technology, Nicolas is at the top there. So we're glad to welcome you, Nicolas. Please, over to you.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's interesting when someone asked me what I was doing, and then, do you work with NFTs? Yes. Do you work with Metaverse? Yes. Digital twins, crypto, blockchain, all the buzzword bingo. So it's really fun to be here. I hope this is not going to be death by PowerPoint. So I'll try to skip through this as much as possible and, focus on the core, like the lessons learned. And thank you, Mikael and Patrick as well, really interesting. And I think from Mikael's, what I bring with me is that we need to do, the same things that took 40 years, we need to do that much faster together. And that's again, where digital twins come in. And also what Patrick is talking about, I try to incorporate that in my presentation. And if we solve a problem in Sweden or somewhere else, we need to take that solution and bring it to the world as fast as possible. So it's not only that the technology is distributed, it's that the solutions, if they're somewhere, we need to make it faster to deploy them on a global level. So yeah, this is me. I've been working with real estate for the last 7 years, innovation and strategy. But in short, my ambition has been to solve all the problems in the world and to operate in all countries in the world. And that has led me to do a lot of different things. My tie to Africa has been that I invested in a Nigerian startup about 7 or 8 years ago, an audiobook startup. So trying to create knowledge and disseminate knowledge all across the world has been the top of my agenda for a long time. And then working with a lot of digital twin projects, right now focusing a lot on what you can see in the background, global digital twins. So working with a company right now where they have a global digital twin. So basically think Google Earth. And we can use that to, again, if we see a solution somewhere, copy paste that and basically place it in the environment we wanted it to be in on a global level. So first, I think we saw some from, especially Patrick, what are digital twins? So I'm just going to go quickly into what it could be. So this is an airport in Singapore, and it's basically the classic, sorry, I'm just going to, there we go. I was hearing the noise as well. So the definition of digital twin is a virtual representation of reality fed with real-time data from that part of reality. And like Patrick said, that could be a factory, it could be part of a factory, it could be a car, it could be planes, it could be the whole airport, or the entire Earth. And one of the most important things is that all these things have to work together. And the real-time aspect, it's only important because it allows you to make simulations. So you can actually predict what will happen. And let's say, for instance, in this case, this is built on a game engine called Unreal Engine, which is physics-based modeling. It's sort of like the computer engine behind it is based on physics. So if you want to introduce a model and a plane to actually sort of like land on this tarmac and figure out, what would that actually look like before we do it in the real world, you can actually do that, which is of course, better than building planes over and over and go over in the real world, consuming energy, consuming materials, but actually trying it out virtually first in the place where it's supposed to be. So yeah, I realize this is going to take more than the minutes that I have. This one is, I think it's the one, Patrick, that you showed, Omniverse, NVIDIA, which is, this is again like, a virtual copy of a real factory from BMW, where you can look at it, you can interrogate it, you can get real-time data, and again, see what is happening. And again, what I'm trying to say in the next couple of slides is also, that this is omnipurpose. Basically, if someone wants to look at this from ergonomic perspective, right? Because this is mimicking a human being, or it can be a direct translation of a human being, how they behave, how they stand, so they can optimize what they're doing here to place it higher up so that you don't get back problems. So all these kind of things allows us to have a shared reality, because usually we'll look at factories or any part of the world from different perspectives. We use different tools, we have different backgrounds, and it's really, really hard for us to understand what we're doing. Where digital twins can offer a shared reality for computation, so using AI, machine learning, but definitely for collaboration among people, as well as systems, and allows us to communicate in a better way. Because if I'd shown you like Excel sheets or a 2D floor plan, it wouldn't have been the same thing as showing you this virtual model, which is filled with computer vision. So we have an example here. See if we can remove this, where we have a customer in the UK during the pandemic, so we couldn't go to London. But we wanted to help them visualize the future where they're gonna do replace a door. So we scanned the church, we took a model of London so we could zoom in, and we created this environment where we can bring in the model, virtualize and simulate the future. And I hear a lot of noise from someone, so maybe if you can mute yourself, that would be perfect. It just shows that people from different backgrounds can come together with a shared reality in mind. And this is also something that I've been in charge of, which is school project. See if we can turn up, where we basically did the same thing. We took either 3D models, floor plans, or scanned the reality, brought that in, fed that with real-time data. I think it's lagging a little bit, where we can control the energy system in real time. So to Patrick's point, we need to reduce energy and create optimal carbon footprints everywhere, and to simulate this. And also with real-time data for real estate, for instance, I was in conversation yesterday where they could see, having an understanding on how the utilization of that building is in real time, they could see that it's being used like for 10%. So the greenest building is the one that has never been built. And today we have a lot of assets out there. We can make existing systems a lot more efficient than just building new things. So I'm just going to take a couple of use cases here from the top of my mind, because when I was asked by Chimdinma to participate, he said, okay, should focus on the metaverse, how we can change experience, healthcare, education, finance, and commerce by 2030. So just a couple of examples. So in healthcare, for instance, today in Sweden and a lot of other places, actually I've been working with hospital projects in Nigeria as well, the information is pretty scattered. It doesn't exist anywhere. And me as a patient is not in control of it. So in the future, which I think we're doing a little bit here in the Baltics, here in Europe, in Estonia, when you're born, your information gets stored on a blockchain. And anything and everything that happens when you interact with government entities, it gets, ingested into your own blockchain. So when you're at the doctor's, let's say, you open up your blockchain, they can see that information, and then whatever they do gets, it's added to you. So when you go to one hospital or the next hospital or not a doctor, that information follows you, which is very, very different from today. And it's also when you have a digital twin of yourself that is being fed with data from your Apple Watch what you eat, how often you exercise, and all this information that is really, really important for a physician to understand. That means that you can have your digital twin in the cloud of yourself, and you can involve healthcare professionals from all over the world, and they don't necessarily know it's you, right? They just know that you're a person that has these symptoms, that do these kind of things. So we're talking about predictive maintenance, not just for factories, but actually for people, where the traditional business model, you go to the doctor when you're sick, is going to go away, and you just pay the doctors when you're healthy. Because if you pay them when you're sick, they haven't done their job. So these business models will, keep on changing a lot as well. And in terms of education, where we do a lot with Tenyne as well as Winniio, it's when you store this knowledge into these virtual models, into the digital twins, that's when we also can cover the skill shortage gap that Patrick was talking about. Because if we can take the knowledge from people, store that in a way that basically everyone can understand, and use that in virtual reality, augmented reality, we can actually transfer knowledge to the different places in the world that needs it, or the different people, and on a global level. And in terms of finance, where it's become really, really interesting as well. So in terms of the metaverse, you heard about it possibly from Meta and Facebook. That's one perspective. Metaverse is more of a concept and a platform where it allows people to come together and collaborate. So basically like a game environment. A lot of game engines are used for the metaverse creation. And it's also something called tokenomics. So they have their own economic system where you can buy things. I don't know if you played Fortnite, they have their own monetary systems. So it's also tied to crypto, where you have a lot of different currencies. So the finance aspects are also going to become really interesting, where you can actually create something in the metaverse, take it to the real world, and someone in the real world might pay for it either with crypto or real currency. So the whole commerce situation is about to change quite a lot. Crypto is becoming a little bit more regulated, but there's still a little bit of a wild west out there. So okay, yeah. So the metaverse is, again, for me, just having a separate metaverse where you can just do gaming stuff, or that is not tied to reality. That's not really what I think will solve the world's problems. That is escaping reality. But if we can tie it and work with schools, with factories, with nations, and come together and solve problems faster, that's when we utilize and can leverage modern tools and technologies to get things done faster. So, and I think, again, the 4 topics that I just mentioned, they're really, really cool on their own. LED lights are really cool on their own, but it's a composite of different domains coming together. So when you bring all this kind of stuff together, that's when we're going to see that we have no idea. Well, we probably have an idea what the future is going to look like based on where the cutting edge right now, but the cutting edge in the next 5 to 10 years, when you combine these solutions, that's where it becomes really interesting. And that's, again, where digital twins and the metaverse can bring these different domains together and make change happen faster. And why is that important? I don't know, how am I with time? Maybe I should wrap this up for Q&A. Yeah, I think so. It's just this last example, so we can go into more of a panel discussion. So the one thing that also Chimdinma asked or mentioned was that, how do we get this together? How can we get this done faster if we haven't done it before? And the ability to, see something that before was stuck in Excel sheets and display that on top of the reality we have, like we can see in this video, is definitely possible today. So again, if we build a hospital somewhere, we can take that, the 3D models and everything about it and place it somewhere else so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Or we can see here, we can visualize pollution data in real time. We can solve problems virtually first and simulate what that will look like in reality 99% fast, 99% faster than we've done before, and then do it, in the real world. So if there's something I want to take with you, I want you to take with you, is that we're gonna do everything virtually first. We're not gonna do everything in the real world. We're not gonna try this stuff out. We're gonna create this environments where we mimic reality. So we emulate reality. We create, we see, okay, what happens if we do this? What happens if we do this? So we test it out in a safe space first, and then we take it into reality. So that's what we're going to do with virtually everything. That's what I believe. Yeah, that's it. Now, panel discussion.
Okay, that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Nicolas. I think
Yeah.
the presentation was super on point, especially went into the use cases or scenarios of how these technologies can be applied. And that's very important.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're moving into the panel discussion. Please, for our audience, if you have any questions, please do drop in the chat area. And of course, we'll also be allowing you to ask any question you may have. Just note it down, so that we can, have a good conversation. We think that is very, very important. So in starting off the panel discussion, I'm going to start with a question because, most of the things you discussed are very technical, right? In terms of, understanding it and how some people be like, how does this concern me? What do I have to do with this? What role am I going to play? You're talking about technologies that I don't even have any idea about, right? So I'll begin maybe with Mikael. So Mikael, you're talking about, you talked about research and how we can bring into usefulness. And when we begin to look at, especially for us, maybe in Africa, or in also emerging markets across the world, where maybe they are not really at the cutting edge of research at this time, is there in any way, do you see any solution? Because we want to have a community or a global effort towards tackling these unique challenges that the world is facing. Do you think there is any model, any way where we can actually bring this thing practically, where people in their different, locations, in their different, locality and their unique context can contribute, to the field of research in solving these problems?
Yes, definitely. And sometimes, like I have experience from developing some technologies which are like today and so on, but it doesn't mean that I know all the problems or things which are needed. But if we share things which are needed and we know about local needs somewhere, like in Africa somewhere, then we can try to address this with research. And what will happen in the future is that we talked about it before, someone mentioned it, that we need to have solutions locally. And then the local stuff will grow, and that it will create the growth of the region and so on. And this means that there will be place-based innovation. So if we know about different issues somewhere in Africa, in Chitungwiza town, for example, in Zimbabwe, then we could solve some of those things just by sharing this type of information and meeting. So then, and then the young people locally, they can take this solution and implement it, and we just transfer as much knowledge as we can and support with these digital twins or technical knowledge and so on. So this is why it's so important that we meet from different disciplines, and all of you who are here, you have some expertise area, and nobody of us has the complementary view. But once we start to discuss this little thing, then we feel that, oh yes, we can contribute. I am not confused anymore what I can do. This is the first step. So that's why we have this meeting like this. So everybody feel free to give your ideas and be part of the exchange, and then we'll come into some of the solutions which will be actually realized.
And I've seen Diana raise her hand a couple times now. Diana, do you have a comment or a question?
I think
You're
she's
on mute.
clapping more than raising her hand.
Oh, is she? Ah, got it.
All right, so that is a fantastic answer. So basically, I think, one of the driving force, just like Mikael mentioned, would be place-based innovation. I think that's really crucial, to harness, different mindset, different solutions from different contexts to solving some of the challenges the world is facing. So my next question will basically go to Patrick. Patrick talked about digitalization for a planetary purpose. And that's actually a heavy topic. And, in looking at it now, for example, when you talk about the planet, the world is facing climate change, problems and all that. In places like Africa, where there could be an argument made to say we have not really contributed to the industrialization in the world. We have not the people who have fled the gases, and all those things that are contributing to the climate issues now, right? And when you consider how power, for instance, is an essential commodity required for growth, how should places like Africa or emerging economies, play this game? Let me give you a context situation. Now, there is war in Europe, right? Ukraine, Russia, the gas is not flowing. There is power challenges. And recently, Germany had to restart their, coal plants and all that. And this is something we've been talking about in regards to climate change. Coal is not good for the climate and all that. But then they had to restart it because they have a pressing energy challenge. What do you think should be maybe the attitude of emerging economies, right, in tackling this issue? Now, they need to develop, but at the same time, they need to also take into consideration their environment. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, first, I'm not about to tell somebody how they should run their country, right? But I'll be honest, thinking aloud, the advanced economies have never been sustainable. Going back 250 years, this has never been sustainable. And we're going to need to make a radical change in just the next, the world needs to make a radical change in just the next few years by the end of this decade. The Bill Gates book a couple of years ago on climate change, and I see this other places, it seems like there can be an adequate supply of clean electric power. And that will probably come from solar and wind and nuclear. And then there's hydropower and geothermal and those sorts of things. I'm doubtful in terms of mobile power. So I think we're going to need to move away from petroleum, and there just seems massive challenges in the battery electric supply chain. So this then gets to how would we operate as humanity without mobile power, with plenty of electricity, but not mobile power. And I think this then starts having major systemic effects across the culture. I'm saying this from Detroit. The first auto company, the first auto plant is just 10 miles from me, or 15 kilometers. But I don't see a future for the auto industry. I think the aerospace industry is really challenged once again, because mobile power is just going to be a problem. So how would we live without that? So first, in terms of transportation, I'm a big promoter of trains and trolleys, and the idea of using electricity to move things using stationary power. And let me briefly go off on an aside on that. Part of the stationary power is going to be stationary power storage. So when we have more sunlight than we need at the moment, we need to be able to store that power, or more wind, so that we can use, if there's too much sun during the day, we want to save some of that power so we can read our TVs or watch at night. In stationary power is easy. You can just lift heavy things during the day when there's more sun than you need, and you allow the heavy things to fall at night, which is literally physics 101. So that's the first thing, is I think we're going to see a major change in transportation. The other point that I'll make is, the base concept of a digital twin is that we can separate the information about my coffee cup. You can't see that. Okay. You can separate the information about my coffee cup from the physical coffee cup. So, and if we separate the information, then we can transmit the information. What I'm really getting to is I want to replace global shipping with the internet. I want to replace global shipping with the metaverse. So if you think of it, if we held this meeting 10, 15 years ago, we would have all needed to fly to the same location in order to have this conference. But with just in this case, Zoom, we can have this conference with people from all around the world very easily. And I think with the concept of digital twins, and particularly the idea that we can have a digital factory that can manufacture the same product at very localized manufacturing facilities, I think that then becomes the wave of the future. I wrote something a couple of years ago when COVID first hit. It was about how pandemics might impact the aerospace industry, and oh, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. So, but I'll finish on the point that I just made. Is oh, I remember what it was. It's vaccine factories. I mean, the pandemic was taking off. It was clear that there would be a vaccine, but we'll need to distribute the vaccine globally. And I don't think we're dealing with just this disease. We're going to have more diseases. And I'm not sure how they're doing it, actually, quite frankly, but the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccine need to be kept at very cold temperatures, and they're only manufactured in a few locations. So how do we
refrigerated trucks for the most part?
How do they get it overseas?
No, I mean, it's refrigerated containers, so they just ship it from truck to a container ship and then overseas, right? But
So
it's definitely, I mean, it costs a lot, and it's definitely not CO2 friendly in the slightest, right? It's a lot of refrigeration that needs to get done perpetually, or like, you know, continuously.
So I'll finish with this. Let's have physical vaccine factories around. Let's have 1,000 physical vaccine factories around the world instead of the current 5 or 6 that there are now. Okay.
No, and I think like it's interesting. I mean, Tenyne, I'm going to spare you the voice and asking me some questions. I'll just take it from here, I think. So I think like what Mikael was saying was really interesting. And again, what Patrick was saying is also equally interesting. Again, like, you know, if we would be in the metaverse right now, it's not just mimicking that we're in an auditorium somewhere where I've seen all these metaverse concepts, right? And, you know, me would, you know, take the stage, or Patrick or Mikael would actually be that, you know, Patrick, we can zoom in. We can invite someone quickly, right? That is in charge of refrigeration talks for Pfizer. And we can, you know, zoom into that car, and they can tell us exactly how it works, right? And then we zoom back out, and then we go to, again, to Himanshu. We visit him in Delhi, and he's sort of like in there. We're all there with him, you know, navigating through that part of the world. And he or whoever else that is there can just show us and tell us these are the problems that we're having. Because one thing that Mikael was saying is not that people are going to, you know, express what they're needing. It's more expressing what they're doing right now. What are the problems that people are experiencing, and getting that across to other people in a way that everyone can understand. And that usually doesn't happen because we do that in PowerPoints. We try to do that in Excel sheets. We try to do that with everything. But if we can visit these parts of the world that doesn't necessarily need help, but I mean, like, you know, they have fantastic options and opportunities, that's definitely how we should do it. So just imagine that, you know, instead of this call, or maybe the next call, we visit Mikael, whatever he is, and it tells us about this kind of stuff. And then we teleport into the next place, and the next place, and the next place. And maybe we together in a joint session create something, right? And then we do that in the so-called metaverse, but it's based on physics. It's based on having the actual, you know, the products, how they will behave in the real world. So we create something that the world has never seen together to fit to that problem at that part of the world. So basically taking it from the metaverse, we take it into the real world, and then we can say, okay, we need this locally produced over here. So I'm an advisor for a 3D printing company, amongst other things. So one of the things that there, which is really interesting, is that we're in discussions, or have been looking at Zambia as a country. And they have a housing crisis like every other nation in Sweden or everywhere else, basically. But the question is, where are we going to build houses, right? Where are the optimal places that they're going to, you know, pass the test of time? Or what Patrick was saying, maybe they're going to be mobile. I mean, what are the best options? So what we're thinking about right now is that we take the satellite data, global digital twin, we simulate, you know, weather patterns, climate change. So we see how this is going to affect everything. We ingest, mobility data, movement patterns, all these kind of things, energy hubs, to let the digital twin tell us and show us on a map, basically auto-populating, these are the best places for us to build hospitals, schools, cell towers, vaccine centers, whatever that might be, that is contextually right for that part of the world. And then it doesn't have to be 100% right, but it can be 80% to give us suggestions. And then we work with people on the ground to Patrick's comment. We can have this vaccine factory built once somewhere on the planet, but we share the building information models, we share everything in it, and then we just deploy it to 1,000 locations. And then we tell people, okay, here's what it looks like. Modify it with the material that you have at your disposal. Work with local, construction companies, local electricians, et cetera, and get this built. But you can use this mold so you don't have to recreate it from scratch, right? So, and this all happens virtually first in a metaverse kind of play tied to reality. So all these things are possible today. So that's also something where Mikael said, it's about the future. It's today. All the things that we mentioned, that I mentioned, I think Mikael mentioned, Patrick mentioned, it's just possible today. If we can identify the right people, the right tools, and bring them together, I'm 100% confident that we can solve all the world's problems, or at least accelerate solutions creation in a much, much better way than we have done before. So, and again, like I work with this on a daily basis. So it is rocket science combined with everything else as well, right? It's just, it's pretty simple when you think about it. Yeah, that's enough of my rant. Chimdinma, does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. One of the key things that begins to, that I begin to gain from one of the things you're saying is, especially with regards to people everywhere in the globe, when we apply this kind of knowledge and put it in practice, right, what happens is we create opportunity for people everywhere, right? I think that's one of the key issues that are also facing in the world, that is leading to some of these crises, because opportunities are not equated, right? For every society you go to, any country, people are always wanting to move from the rural area to the urban. And when you come to places, that are still developing, they're always trying to migrate from their place to a new country, new economies where they can actually find opportunity. And these kind of solutions, in thinking about it, it has a very peculiar or unique way where it can actually equate opportunity for people everywhere. And also one of the key things, I'm looking at in this discussion is, who are the people, Nicolas mentioned the fact that you need to have the right people, the right tools, right, and the resource to actually make this happen. Now, it means that we need to actually equip the people, okay? People everywhere need to have this kind of capabilities to, they bring this kind of solution. So my last question, I think we're already out of time.
I think
so
Diana has a question as well, so we need to
so maybe I'm just going to hold on to the question. Himanshu, please, do we have questions in the comment section?
Yeah, we have one question.
Okay, please go ahead and ask the question first.
Yeah, so the question is from Tawanda. The people are really concerned about privacy issue these days. Do you think their benefit outweigh the risk?
Yes, is the first short answer. But again, privacy doesn't have to come into the equation if you do it correctly. So again, with the healthcare digital twin, you can get better service, better care than any doctor has given you before, and the doctor doesn't even know who you are, right? You can give you all these recommendations. The same for basically anything. So if you do modern data strategies, all this kind of stuff correctly, privacy doesn't really have to become an issue, to be honest. But yes, it's the planet at stake. So I definitely think that we need to do a lot of things that we possibly haven't done before a lot better and a lot faster.
So Diana, what do you think?
Yeah, Diana, please.
So very much. Oh, this is intriguing. This is beautiful information from all the presenters. I really welcome it with gratitude. Okay, just I wanted to make a comment about some few points which I just picked up, which were being expressed with, I did not see who was talking behind the screen, but just I want to comment. Previously, when we had a meeting, we spoke about the ideas that we may have to impose or imply so as to come up with the tangible solution to all the things that we discussed previously. So as I took it myself to mobilize a team of people who are willing to work. I just had, you were commenting about if we have got the right people or the right tools or what. For your information, when you're talking about building structures in which I heard you mention something like hospitals or what. For your information, you are actually joined with people who are builders here. Some of them are let me just say, constructors, and people with let me say, a good background, even to learn or to enhance or to advance from what they know into maybe directing it into a way, let me say, focusing on, for example, you were talking about solar, somebody talked about solar systems. If you have got somebody who is having a scientific background, they can easily adapt and understand how solars can be, let me say, maybe manufactured or assembled or whatever it is. So if it's about all those other things, speaking of Africa, particularly Zimbabwe, people are educated enough to be able to implement or to learn or to advance into exactly what we need to do. So if it's about that, rest assured, you've got people and we have got a team which is capable of doing that. So let's know more and let's see how we can move forward from that, because people are already ready to take on.
No, I definitely agree. I think like everyone is ready all over the world. And again, like the benefits with digital twins, or like showing something that actually is reality, is that you can describe that in a way that doesn't, again, like it's not Excel sheets, it's not cryptic. You can actually show, okay, if we change this over here, how will that affect something? So you can show that to anyone on the planet, and we can understand that, and we can talk around it. Those are the major benefits. So I'd love to work with you or everyone here, of course, obviously, and getting this stuff done, and to share best practices and to learn from each other. It's not that the right people are just the ones that want to get change done. It's not that they have to have an education that spans over 50 years. It's quite the opposite. You can get something from a 5-year-old or anyone in the world. It's just that they have to explain it in a way that other people can understand, and then we can solve these problems. I unfortunately need to go in 1 minute, but Mikael or Patrick, do you have any comments on what Diana?
I can add on that, and Diana, and once you leave, Nicolas, I will talk about you.
Perfect. Perfect. You know me better than anyone.
No, I can do it immediately, because this is sometimes we want to solve a problem, but sometimes if we get together like a few people, then we will get ideas. And for example, with Nicolas, I had no idea about digital twins and stuff. And then he talked about the project in Växjö and housing and heating for digital twin. And then I got the idea, I can copy that and use in my case where I live.
Yeah.
And then we got into new avenues just by meeting. And me and Nicolas, we met by a comment on LinkedIn over an ice cream.
Exactly.
So coming together like this, and people being engaged and willing to do something, even though maybe we don't have a real project, like Diana said, that there are people who want to do this thing. So that's why we are here, actually. So everybody who wants to do something, the formal 1 hour is over, but we will continue.
Yeah. I gotta run, but Mikael, talk about me all you want. Thank you everyone for taking the time to be here, and thank you Chimdinma for the opportunity. Patrick, always good to see you. I talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
So let's see. Are there more questions from participants or comments or details? Because we can discuss whatever, just to elaborate on this and come into some insight. And we will not solve stuff, but we will get some more ideas. And the idea is that we can be in touch again, do something, or maybe like Tenyne, they will be offering courses and educational platforms for these things, so then we can build a community. So anyone who has a question, feel free just to unmute yourself or comment.
In my class, I just call on people. Be careful.
That could be a good
It's not a
tactic
class.
here.
Definitely it's not a class.
Um, hey, Masume, good to, I haven't seen you, but then good to see you here.
Yeah, in terms of worldwide connection, actually, Matsume reached out to me because she's interested in digital. She was doing her MBA in digital twins, and she found me via Mike Greaves, and then she introduced me to Nicolas, and Nicolas introduced me to you, Chimdi, and that's how I got here. So, I mean, it's just amazing, these worldwide connections. So,
Yeah.
I'm going to go back a little bit on what both Diana talked about and Nicolas and Mikael. What I see is the big inhibitor to this new future that we've absolutely got to find is the ability to learn. I mean, it's organizational learning. It's the ability to find the information that you need in order to go off and build the solar farm. And I see the metaverse as or digital twins as this easy means of communicating knowledge, much like Zoom is doing right now, right? But when we need to give skills and technical things, instead of the Excel spreadsheet that Nicolas talked about, or just a Word document or a book or something like that. Actually, Chimdi and I were on a call with somebody who's not here, but it's from Turku University, where Matsume is, and he has a metaverse in using it to train people in forklift driving. So you can learn how to drive a forklift in a safe environment where you're not going to knock over anything that's physical. But B, you can then go off and get that quick certification in the space of a day or so and how to drive a forklift. So, I mean, that's just a very immediate thing. But my point is that learning, distributing knowledge, disseminating knowledge, providing knowledge that people can find quickly and easily when they need it to get that information that they need right at this time. The metaverse does open up this whole new possibility for sharing knowledge. And I think that will be one of the most important things that we can do.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think, in contributing also to what Diana also, talked about, there are people who already have these capabilities. The only thing maybe, they may not have the certifications to show, right? They may not have the degrees maybe to show, to say, hey, I'm too great at this and all that. But, with the metaverse, we can actually bring training. And that is some of the things that Tenyne want to do. We can actually bring, training that are contextualized, even, breaking down beyond the boundary, the barriers of language, right? To communicate these kind of things to the people, right? Just like the example you mentioned with, forklift driving, you can go into many different kind of capabilities that people want to learn, want to train on, to actually deliver this kind of jobs. And the metaverse can make that happen now, not like tomorrow or in the near future. It can happen now. And that's really incredible, right? So it means we can actually build the world. Like, for instance, in Africa, we can actually make sure that every person living here has a good skill that they could actually earn a living from. And that's fantastic, thing to really consider. And that's really all possible because of the metaverse and all that. And, that's one area we could also be looking at. One of the key reasons, this webinar is so important is that we can look at these different, areas and form, initiatives that we could actually try towards achieving them, So yeah, please, anyone, if you still have any more comment, any more questions, please go ahead and ask.
I like Marty's question just came into the chat. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, this is a good thing. So Marty, where are you in the world?
Mary, you can unmute and answer if you can.
Oh, Ghana. Okay.
Yeah.
No, this is a I don't know how to solve that last mile problem of what is your ability to access YouTube. We'll start with that. What's your ability to access YouTube in Ghana?
Guys, Ghana has good internet, so that isn't a problem at all. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but, yeah.
Very well. Okay. So Chimdi, I think that then it gets to Tenyne, right? I'm sorry, I'm putting you on the spot, but that this gets to your vision on Tenyne, isn't it? Is to be able to distribute learning through the metaverse.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, and sometimes it's like distributing learning, but sometimes it's when these things are discussed, and like I also feel sometimes totally, utterly lost when talking about metaverse and these things. Then I want some simple examples, something.
Yeah.
That's why, for example, if we can talk about, okay, now I'm fed up with this digital twin metaverse. Get it away.
Mika from Turku is not on the call right now, but he is doing that. The very specific goal of forklift driver training, he created a metaverse for that. So I don't.
Yes. So then I think that when we come to such direct examples which we can take and show, then it will be a little bit more clear. And of course, nothing is clear in just one meeting or one YouTube video.
Yeah.
But after a few times, then we get a little bit more familiar with this. And the important message here is that we should, it is sufficient that we understand, oh, this is my position. This is what I can do. I don't need to know all these things, but this is good enough for me to do. So once we come to such insight, like Marty and which I came into, I can do some of these things, but there are many things which I don't understand. But that's why I have you guys and so on.
That's fantastic. Thank you. That is a wonderful submission. So I think these conversations should continue. Off here, one of the key things we're looking to do is perhaps create a community. I don't know if you would like that. And we will subsequently going to have more use case discussion, about these kind of things, and see how we can apply it within our own local, communities and all that. So yeah, I think we can really drive that, and we can do that because we are ready to do that. So if after this, webinar, we'll be keeping in touch, with more information on how we can actually proceed going forward, and all that. So I don't know if anyone has any more question, anything you are not clear about. Martin Mesa will keep in touch. For you that, is maybe new to the space, definitely by joining the community, you'll be able to ask any question you want to ask, and also collaborate in new and different ways. Yeah. But does anyone have any question, any contribution, anymore?
So how are you setting up this community?
We are looking to maybe on LinkedIn, but then we need to, we are doing some work right now on it. So once we are done, we'll communicate that. We have your email, so we'll communicate through the emails as well. Yeah.
Also, I think we can tell the participant about all the master classes that we have in our, you can say, Tenyne platform as of now.
True. So yeah, for Mate, on Tenyne platform, if you log in, if you go there, we have an e-learning part, the Tenyne Learn. We had done a prior, master class on the metaverse. I think that's going to really set you on a good foundation, to better understand. Yeah. Okay.
And here also, I am pretty sure that several of us will get several ideas after webinar. So once we get them, feel free to propose something, or if you have an idea, because that's from where new projects start, or new ideas, like the example about ice cream. So when you have such, don't hesitate to propose something, because that will result in a unique project based on your idea and some constellation of some of the people here, or maybe some of the new, and so on.
Cool. Fantastic.
Diana.
Thank you so much.
I wanted to know, is there a way, am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Oh, sure. Thank you. I just wanted to know, is there a way that we can implement this by, all these ideas by probably if we may find personnel who impart this knowledge to some other people who are willing to, and if ever, if the answer is yes, and when and how?
Yeah, that is, I think what she's asking is basically, if you could find people who are proficient in these areas, bring them together to impart this knowledge to the people. That's your question, right? Yeah, so that's one of the things we're working on. The first start to build with the community so that we can quickly, engage with each and every one of us, right? Over time, we're going to be having more discussions of this type within this space as well. And also, we're also looking at, creating perhaps courses, contents for people who want to really learn more and all that. Cool. Okay.
And I think there's a lot to building this community. I mean, we need to build a grassroots effort and then expand on that. So, I mean, I know I get frustrated that, man, we have groups I'm in have wonderful ideas, but how do you actually improve the condition of people in the world? So, but I think it does start with working as getting this group and getting active in this group, and then kind of figuring out what can we do that's concrete, and then we can leverage and promote that, right? So it's we need to plant one seed, but before we can plant one seed, I think we probably need to communicate about what that seed should be. So
and that is an example. When I was involved in regional growth by smart specialization by European Commission, which means big stuff, and then there should be some activities. What we started with in one of the areas was a workshop. We said that let's meet and discuss. And during the workshop, some people were more active. Then we focused a little bit around those grassroots. And then for the next workshop, we discussed something around that. And then it emerged to something. So this is the place-based innovation. And then it will fit into this big context, regional stuff, and so on, which are more visionary. But that's why this type of exchange and informal workshop, not 2,000 person conference, but 20 who are discussing, sharing ideas and building trust, personal bonds. We share some ideas, and then someone says, hey, that's a good one. Can we do something?
Yeah.
This is good. Thank you. Thank you. I think I've had this has been a wonderful conversation. Yeah. Looking forward to the next one, which we'll be bringing very shortly. Okay. Yeah, but then it's been a fantastic conversation. So at this point, I'm thinking perhaps maybe we should end it here for today, except perhaps we want to continue with the conversation. That's very fine.
Terrific. Well, it's
Okay,
been,
so
thank you very much
yeah.
for the invitation to come today. So
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, everyone, for your time. I'm really grateful. Thank you so much. So see you some other time. Have a good day. Bye. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye now.
Have a good
Thank
day.
you.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Share
Thank you.
ideas.
Yeah, definitely.